Hey everyone, today I actually want to talk to you about game streaming and the future of traditional home consoles and traditional physical media and streaming platforms moving forward. Primarily because of the announcements of obviously Google Stadia, Phil Spencer getting involved in talking about xCloud and how Microsoft plans to respond to Google Stadia. And we can't forget that apparently Walmart is at the Game Developers Conference, according to some websites out there, talking to developers about possibly putting their games on a Walmart branded streaming service. So, yes, let's talk about that. First up, obviously we knew Google was getting involved in the game streaming services for a while with Project Stream last year. I got to test it out, worked great. Project xCloud has had a test as well at one point, and that worked really well. And we've seen prior streaming services like OnLive and PlayStation actually has a streaming service right now for their retro games. They've actually had that out for a while. And that service has only gotten better since launch. It was kind of rough at launch, but now it's actually gotten better and a lot more usable. Of course, we're talking retro games, not modern games. And we know that there's more services coming. We know that Amazon has been kind of looking at streaming services for video games behind the scenes and using their server structure to set it up. And now we're hearing Walmart might be doing the same thing, which is interesting since they don't have a heavy investment in that side of things. And this isn't a surprise because at this point, at the very dawn of game streaming becoming mainstream, we're going to see dozens of competitors pop up because no one owns the game streaming market yet. A lot of people presume Google Stadia will own it, especially with Google Chrome and YouTube integration. A lot of people assume that Xbox has a shot at it due to the fact that Windows is on all PCs. Xbox is already a pre-built brand, and they have a reputation in the gaming sphere already, and they're still going to make a traditional console, so they're going to ease the transition much better for traditional gamers than, say, Google Stadia, who isn't providing a traditional way to play games. It's just, look, you stream. That's it. You want traditional gaming, go to somebody else. And now we have Walmart considering getting to the game streaming field. We're going to have Amazon probably in it eventually, and many others. It's kind of like what's happening in the PC space, where you have like all these different game stores popping up now. Had Steam forever, Epic Game Store, Good Old Games. There's the Uplay store from Ubisoft, a whole bunch of competitors there, but at least that's all on a single platform. Whereas here we're talking about the possible of multiple platforms over multiple devices. And I'm not exactly sure how to feel about all this. Now, I talked last year at length how much I do think video game streaming is the future of gaming. And a lot of this is just based on the direction gaming has been heading in. If you think about it, when you buy a laptop or PC today, a pre-built especially, they don't often come with disk drives anymore. And when you see people talk about building their own PCs, rarely is a disk drive part of the plan. In fact, a lot of PC cases don't even include a place to put a traditional Blu-ray or DVD or CD-ROM disk drive. Why is that? Because you don't really consume media on those platforms that way. Games are essentially 100% digital on the PC front, but there is an issue with digital. And we've talked about in the past about an all-digital future, but the one problem with an all-digital future is you give up a little bit of user convenience for a different type of user convenience, right? So the ultimate user convenience of digital and just downloading all your games is that once everything's downloaded, once everything's installed, once everything's good to go, you just click a button to launch one game and then close it, click a button to watch another game, or, tap a button on your controller, tap on your screen, like our phones, etc. That is how we are used to digital gaming. But the downfall of that is it's not technically as convenient as just sticking a game into your system and hitting go. You have hours and hours to often wait on downloads and updates and all the stuff that's required to start when, like on Switch, especially with Nintendo games, you just pop the cartridge in and play. That is a convenience that exists with Switch. It doesn't exist with PlayStation 4 and Xbox One because PlayStation 4 and Xbox One function exactly like PCs were doing back in the 90s, whereas you put the disc in and you install, and you install, and you install. Except the installs are so big, it could take several hours. And then after it installs, it's got to download the day one update on top of that. Whereas, at least on Switch, if there is a day one update, often it's optional and you could start the game anyways. Or if it is required, at least you don't have to install the base game because it's included on the cartridge. Very interesting how that is really mirroring what happened in the PC market. And that really tells you that in the future there will be systems, hardware systems that don't have disk drives that are digital only. That is a thing that's going to exist probably as soon as the next generation. And now we got to talk about game streaming and how does that fit into it, because I just told you about how it takes away one of the conveniences, and that is being able to play the game right now, right? If I go on Steam and I buy, I don't know, let's say I buy The Witcher 3. I actually already own it on Steam, but let's say I buy it today. Now I got to wait for it to download. I can't just click buy and play. Well, you can with Google Stadia. You can with a Walmart streaming service or an xCloud streaming service. You just subscribe and or purchase the game. We don't know how they're going to be monetizing these things yet. And you play it right away. There is no wait time. It is essentially the same convenience we have now with Nintendo Switch, except even more convenient because you don't have to take out and insert cartridges or even keep track of those cartridges. You just pick up your phone, you pick up your PC, your laptop. You don't really pick up your PC, but you sit down at your PC, your laptop, whatever device you happen to be using, and I'm playing a game. I'm playing a AAA game right now. $3, cool beans, right? Like, that is what Google Stadia, that is what xCloud, that is what Walmart's streaming service, and anyone else that gets into the field is providing. It is providing the best of both worlds, the ease between switching between games and no installs. Obviously, there's additional benefits you could talk about with cloud gaming in terms of, unlimited, quote-unquote, unlimited power. But there's also downfalls that still give traditional gaming, at least digital gaming and physical media gaming, a benefit, and a lot of that has to do with latency. So Google Stadia has had a bunch of demos going up this week at GDC, and while I didn't get to go hands-on, I got to read a lot of articles about people that did go hands-on, and it seemed that the people that were playing Assassin's Creed Odyssey had essentially the same experience I did last year, where there might have been latency, but it really wasn't that noticeable. And in a single-player experience that is slower paced in comparison to, say, a Twitch shooter, where you really got to be pretty precise, you're obviously not going to notice much latency anyways. In your house, you could end up with a significant latency, both from your TV, your system, and your Bluetooth controller. All of that adds latency in your own home. So, yeah, the latency really wasn't that noticeable. In fact, a lot of testing on this shows that the latency with the Stadia games versus like playing on an Xbox One X in terms of Assassin's Creed Odyssey, Stadia basically added 40 milliseconds more of latency compared to an Xbox One X locally on your TV. And you might be like, oh, well, that's a lot, but it's really not. Most of us are playing with 100 plus latency on these console games. It's what we are used to. It's actually better on PCs due to better refresh rate monitors, lower MS monitors, using wired peripherals, including keyboard and mice and all that jazz. We lower a lot of the things that create that latency effect. We love wireless controllers on things like Xbox and Switch Pro Controller and the DualShock, but that adds a layer of latency that isn't there, or isn't as bad, I should say, in a wired connection. But whatever, right? Most people could not perceive that there was a difference. Now, side by side, Digital Foundry did their analysis, and of course, the streamed version of the game showed that some textures and stuff were a little blurry in comparison to Xbox One X, which they claim native 4K, but it's more of a checkerboard 4K experience. But still, it was a bit clearer on the Xbox One X. But the idea is in the future, you could have games that are built purposely for this that would look completely visually stunning compared to a dumbed down version, I guess, for something like an Xbox platform. Now, this is all great and dandy, but then reports started coming out about Doom Eternal, and they were mixed a little bit because Doom Eternal is a Twitch-based multiplayer shooter, single-player shooter as well, and it is playable on every platform, on Switch, Xbox, PlayStation 4, and Google Stadia. And when people played it on Google Stadia, mind you, using Google's own internet fiber connection, so literally in the most ideal situation you could have internet-wise, and yeah, they noticed the latency issues. Now, when you watch the footage online, it doesn't look that bad. Especially in the single-player mode, it looks passable, it looks okay, and it's playable. So no one's saying that the game isn't playable, but they do say that they notice when they play that versus when they've played like the Xbox One or even like the Switch version, they are noticing that there is a bigger issue with the latency, with the MS problem. That while the MS differences are the same, that 40 extra MS compared to playing it at home on an Xbox One X, that 40 extra MS makes a huge difference in the accuracy of your shots in a Twitch shooter, especially using mouse and keyboard in particular, where you're used to pretty precise precision on a PC. So there is a latency issue that is creating a problem with this being basically an inferior way to play Doom Eternal. It being inferior doesn't mean it shouldn't exist. We've talked about this on Nintendo Switch with Wolfenstein 2, Doom 2016, and many other games that run worse on Switch compared to every other platform, but still provide some value to those platforms. And I think Doom Eternal is going to be like that. It's going to be not the ideal way to play the game, but it could get millions and millions of people into it. And that's one thing that I cannot deny about streaming. Game streaming makes video games accessible to the world. It no longer matters if you only have a phone. It no longer matters if you have a powerful PC. If you have a huge TV with all of the smart capabilities in the world, you could just plug a Chromecast in. It doesn't matter if you have an Xbox or a PlayStation, or if you can afford $60 games, because a service will come along. I know this. It just is inevitable. Look at what's happened with movies and TV shows. A service will come along for a monthly fee of $40 or less that's going to provide you all of these games without you spending any more money at your fingertips. And Google Stadia is probably looking at it. xCloud is probably looking at doing something like that as well. And yes, as a consumer, I worry about ownership. Like, you see all these games, I own these games. These are mine, right? You know, we got a little sin and punishment action here. We got Majora's Mask 3D. We got a PlayStation 2 game here in Black Hawk Down. We're rocking Octopath Traveler, NBA 2K19 for Xbox. Like, those are games I own. I physically own, and no one can take away from me. And forever, as long as those systems will stay alive, I can put those cartridges in and play them. Whereas we are at the mercy of these services that could take away these games anytime. Contracts could end. We see this with Netflix too. Like, I used to watch House on Netflix. Was it 8 or 9 seasons of House? I used to watch them religiously on Netflix. It was a go-to show to play in the background while I was editing videos. It helped me focus, believe it or not. And then it just vanished one day. And I don't think it's actually available on any streaming service right now. I think you can only purchase it. So that sucks. That, like, I pay for Hulu, I pay for Netflix, and I have Amazon Prime. Those are the 3 big streaming services out there, and I can't enjoy the shows that used to be on those services because they've been hence removed. And that is something we need to worry about in the video game sphere. But again, game streaming is going mainstream. It's going to happen. Whether you enjoy it or I enjoy it, it's going to happen. But I'm concerned. And I think the general concerns that I have are the kind of concerns that are going to make it so, while game streaming will blow up, it's going to be the next mobile phone. When everyone talks about video games being like this multi-billion-dollar business that's grown up to be bigger than movies, bigger than TV, they're talking about because of this. Of like something like 85% of all video game revenue is due to this, right? Our mobile phones, mobile gaming. I know you guys don't enjoy necessarily the way that those games are monetized, but that's where a lot of the money in this industry is coming from. But just because mobile phones have risen up and dominated in terms of revenue in this industry and expanding this industry, it hasn't stopped PlayStation 4 from selling 100 million units. It hasn't stopped Nintendo Switch from topping 30 and Xbox One from probably topping 40 million at this point. It hasn't stopped these games selling in the millions and millions and millions. Some games more than we've ever seen, like Breath of the Wild being the most we've ever seen a single Zelda game ever sell on one platform. Crazy, right? Like, we've never seen these kind of sales sometimes in this industry. So we're seeing growth in certain avenues of traditional gaming, but we've obviously seen an explosion in terms of like the mobile device area. And I think that's what's going to happen here. I don't think Google Stadia, the xCloud for Microsoft, whatever Walmart's doing, whatever Amazon's doing, I don't think these services are going to end up replacing traditional systems, because there is still advantages to traditional systems, including ownership, including better latency, and honestly, just some user convenience there where you are not reliant upon an internet connection. And for a lot of people who might not have the greatest of internet to even enjoy these services, that is a big plus. For a lot of people that don't necessarily have access to those internet services, that's a big plus. For people who maybe don't even pay for internet, the only internet they have is through their wireless phone provider, this is a big plus, because you're not going to be playing this much on 4G LTE. It's just not going to happen. And even on 5G, you got to worry about data caps, because a lot of places have data caps, including a lot of internet providers apparently have data caps as well. I think that's a little insane. I have Time Warner Cable, which the FCC told them they weren't allowed to have data caps, But why other places can, but they can't, I don't know. That's something that needs to be sorted out in the court system. But bottom line is that I don't think this replaces traditional gaming. I think traditional gaming is here to stay for at least another 10 or 20 years. I don't think it really gets to a point where traditional gaming goes away. You know, just like movies and Blu-rays haven't gone away. You can still buy box sets of TV shows, and you can still buy 4K Blu-rays and normal Blu-rays. Heck, you can still buy DVDs of basically every movie out there, because while that market has shrunk, that market hasn't vanished. My parents still watch Blu-rays and DVDs. I just watched a 4K Blu-ray last week. Granted, I don't watch it as much as I watch Netflix and Hulu and go to the movie theater, but I still do it. Heck, movie theaters still exist, despite the fact that they could just release these movies instantly online for, direct to consumers if they wanted, but they don't, because they still monetize best through movie theaters. I think that there is a place for all of this to exist. I think the digital downloads, the physical games, and streaming can all coexist. The question is, how long can they coexist for, and when and if will game developers give up on one medium in favor of the other? And I think that's what we need to worry about the most, because I don't think it's going to happen now. I don't think people are going to look at Google Stadia and be like, oh, we're going to make a game for that, but forget about the 100 million people that own PlayStation 4. I don't think that's something that's happening anytime soon, but I do think 10, 20 years from now, some of these third-party developers, like the EAs and the Ubisofts and Gearbox and whatever, Activision of the world, will eventually be like, hey, look, we're making more money here, so why don't we just do there and forget everything else? And that will be a future and will be a crossroad that we will cross when we get there, because for now, I think there's benefits for everyone. I don't think any of these services are perfect, whether it's physical media, digital downloads, or game streaming. I don't think any one of those delivery methods honestly serves everyone. Options are good, and I hope that options also come to Switch, because right now Switch has digital downloads and physical, doesn't really have a streaming service, at least here in the US. You can stream a couple games like Resident Evil 7 and Assassin's Creed Odyssey out in Japan. So a streaming service, one of these services, or multiple of them coming to Switch, I think is beneficial. But beyond that, I don't really think anything's being replaced anytime soon, but I have my concerns, and you are completely right to have your concerns as well. They are completely valid, and if you're excited for these services, your excitement's validated as well. There's a reason to be excited about potentially having access to thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of modern-day games, with new games being added all the time for a monthly fee. I think that does make gaming cheaper and more affordable for everyone. That being said, I am Nathaniel Robo-Jans from Nintendo Prime, and I'm very interested in what you guys have to say down in the comments below. And also be sure to enter our Nintendo Switch Super Smash Bros. Ultimate giveaway through the Gleam.io link down in the description. It is a 50,000 subscriber giveaway, so when we hit 50K, we'll finally announce the winner of that long haul giveaway. That I'll probably never do a giveaway like that again for many different reasons. One of them being that I don't like having to draw it out for 6 months. So I assume we're going to hit 50K this year. Maybe that's a bad assumption on my part, because people are unsubscribing from my channel. Apparently my content sucks. This video must suck. I don't even know why you guys are watching right now. Why are you sticking around? This video's over. I'm not even this is done. We're finito. There's no more. Bye. I'm irrelevant, okay? I'm irrelevant.